The morning my wife posted another strong women support strong women selfie while texting her lover, I knew it was time to stop pretending I didn't notice. But let me back up, because the real story started 3 months earlier when her brother decided I wasn't good enough for the family name. My name is Andrew Scott, and until recently, I thought I had it pretty good. 41 years old, successful independent investor, married to Vanessa, a corporate lawyer who could argue her way out of a parking ticket and into a designer handbag in the same breath. We lived in Millbrook Heights, one of those suburbs where everyone drives German cars and pretends their kids are gifted. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I should have seen the signs earlier. The way Vanessa started correcting my grammar at dinner parties. How she'd introduce me as my husband, the day trader, with that slight pause that made it sound like a communicable disease. The Instagram posts about leveling up and surrounding yourself with ambitious people. But the real wake-up call came when her brother Marcus showed up. Marcus Webb, yes, she kept her maiden name for professional reasons, was everything I wasn't. Harvard MBA, corner office at Goldman Sachs, the kind of guy who wore cufflinks unironically and talked about disrupting markets while sipping $20 cocktails. He was also the kind of brother who thought his sister had married beneath her station. "Andrew," he said that first night, settling into my leather chair like he owned it, "Vanessa tells me you work from home now." "I manage investments," I replied, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. "Private clients, portfolio management." "Ah." He nodded like I'd just admitted to selling insurance. "And how's that working out in this market?" Vanessa jumped in before I could answer. "Andrew's been very successful. Haven't you, honey?" The way she said it made success sound like a participation trophy. That was 3 months ago. Since then, Marcus had become a regular fixture in our lives, always dropping by with opportunities for Vanessa and barely concealed contempt for me. He'd bring expensive wine that he'd discuss at length, name-drop clients I was supposed to be impressed by, and generally treat our home like his personal networking event. The worst part? Vanessa ate it up. "Marcus thinks I should consider the partner track more seriously," she'd say over dinner, as if I hadn't been encouraging her career for 8 years. "He knows people at the top firms downtown." "That's great," I'd reply, because what else could I say? That her brother was a pretentious ass who was slowly poisoning her against me. That would go over well, but this morning was different. This morning, I'd watched Vanessa post a photo of herself at some networking event I'd never heard of, tagged with "Naranj Boss Babe" and "Know Your Worth," while simultaneously texting someone saved in her phone as CD with heart emojis. Colin Drake, I'd done my homework. Senior partner at Morrison, Blake & Associates, divorced. Drives a vintage Mercedes and belongs to the same country club as Marcus. The same country club where Vanessa had suddenly developed an interest in tennis, despite never having held a racket in her life. I sat in my home office, watching the morning light filter through the blinds, and made a decision. If Vanessa wanted to level up, I'd show her what that really meant. My phone buzzed. A text from Luke, my old friend from the neighborhood gym. "Coffee later. Got some interesting gossip about your wife's tennis lessons." I smiled for the first time in weeks. Luke was one of those guys who knew everyone and heard everything. If there was dirt to be found, he'd already found it. "Absolutely," I texted back. "I'm all ears." The thing about being underestimated is that people forget you're listening. They forget you're watching. They forget that the quiet guy in the corner might be taking notes. Vanessa came downstairs an hour later, already dressed for work in a suit that cost more than most people's rent. She kissed my cheek absently, the way you'd pat a dog. "I'll be late tonight," she said, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. "Client dinner." "With Morrison, Blake?" She paused, just for a second. "Among others. It's a networking thing. Sounds important. It is. She grabbed her keys. Marcus thinks these connections could really open doors for me. Of course he did. After she left, I sat in the silence of our perfectly decorated house and started making a list. Not a revenge list. I'm not a psychopath. A fact-checking list. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. First item, find out exactly what kind of networking my wife was doing. Second item, figure out how deep Marcus's influence went. Third item, decide how far I was willing to go to protect what was mine. I opened my laptop and got to work. If there's one thing 8 years of marriage to a lawyer teaches you, it's that documentation is everything. And if there's one thing 20 years in finance teaches you, it's that everyone leaves a paper trail. Time to follow the money. Luke's coffee shop was the kind of place where retired cops and construction workers gathered to solve the world's problems over burnt coffee and day-old donuts. It was also where you went when you wanted information, without questions. "Your wife's got expensive taste," Luke said, sliding into the booth across from me. He was built like a fire hydrant, short, solid, and impossible to ignore. We'd known each other since high school, back when we both thought success meant having enough money for beer and gas. "How expensive are we talking?" "Tennis lessons at Millbrook Country Club, $300 an hour with the pro." He grinned. "Course, word is she's not learning much about her backhand." "Colin Drake? You know about him?" Luke looked impressed. "Yeah, that's the guy. Divorced last year, nasty split. Wife got the house in Connecticut. He got the club membership and a reputation for chasing younger women." "Younger women like my wife." "Among others." Luke stirred his coffee thoughtfully. "Thing is, Andrew, everyone's talking about it. The club staff, the other members' wives. Your wife's not being subtle." That stung, but not as much as it should have. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being surprised by Vanessa's behavior and started being curious about her methods. "What else do you know?" "She's been spending a lot of time with that brother of hers too. Marcus, right? He's been making waves at the club, talking about bringing in the right kind of people." Luke's expression darkened. "Apparently, present company excluded." "He said that?" "Not in so many words. But when someone asks about your membership application and gets told the club is reassessing its demographic goals, you get the message." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "I applied for membership?" "Your wife did, last month. Listed you as her spouse, but made it clear she was the primary applicant." Luke leaned forward. "Andrew, she's not just cheating on you, she's erasing you." I drove home in a daze, Luke's words echoing in my head. The house felt different when I walked in, less like a home and more like a stage set. Everything perfectly arranged, nothing out of place, no sign that anyone actually lived there. I went to my office and started digging deeper. Vanessa's credit card statements told a story I'd been too trusting to read. Dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, charges at boutiques I'd never heard of, spa treatments and salon appointments that coincided with her late nights at work. But it was the gym membership that really caught my attention. Millbrook Fitness, the same gym where Colin Drake worked out every morning at 6 a.m., according to his very public social media presence. I cross-referenced the dates. Every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 2 months, Vanessa had checked in at Millbrook Fitness at exactly 6:15, her early morning cardio routine that she'd started for her health. My phone rang. "Vanessa." "Hey, honey, I'm going to be really late tonight. This client dinner is turning into a whole thing." "Which client?" A pause. "It's complicated. Corporate restructuring stuff. You wouldn't find it interesting." "Try me. Andrew, I really can't get into it right now. I'll tell you about it tomorrow, okay?" She hung up before I could respond. I looked at my computer screen, at the evidence of my wife's double life laid out in black and white, and made another decision. If Vanessa wanted to play games, I'd learn the rules. I called the one person I knew who understood rules better than anyone. "Mike's Investigations, Big Mike, it's Andrew Scott. Andy, how the hell are you, kid? Big Mike Kowalski had been my mentor when I first started in finance, back when I was young enough to think the stock market was about logic instead of psychology. He'd retired from the NYPD to become a private investigator, specializing in financial crimes and marital disputes. If anyone could help me navigate this mess, it was him. I need some advice, Mike. Hypothetically. Hypothetically, huh? I could hear him chuckling. What kind of hypothetical situation are we talking about? I laid out the basics. The affair, the brother, the social climbing, the systematic erasure of my existence from Vanessa's life. Mike listened without interrupting, the way cops do when they're taking a statement. Hypothetically, he said when I finished, your wife's following a pretty standard playbook. Establish new social connections, distance herself from the old life, build a case for why she deserves better. The brother's the wild card, though. Family involvement usually means this has been planned for a while. Planned? Think about it, kid. Your wife's a lawyer. She doesn't do anything without considering the legal implications. If she's being this obvious about the affair, it's because she wants you to find out, probably hoping you'll do something stupid so she can claim emotional abuse or harassment in the divorce proceedings. The pieces clicked into place. She's building a case against me. That'd be my guess. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I looked around my office, at the life I'd built, at the success I'd achieved through patience and careful planning. Vanessa thought she could outmaneuver me because she was a lawyer and I was just a day trader. She thought her brother's connections made her untouchable. She thought I'd roll over and accept whatever scraps she decided to leave me. She was wrong. Mike, how would someone hypothetically go about documenting financial irregularities in a law firm? Hypothetically, they'd start by looking at expense reports and client billing. Lawyers who mix business with pleasure tend to get creative with their accounting. And if someone wanted to protect their assets during a divorce? Hypothetically, they'd make sure everything was properly documented and legally obtained. No shortcuts, no gray areas. Clean hands, clean conscience. Thanks, Mike. Andy, be careful and be smart. Don't let emotion make you stupid. I hung up and opened a new document on my computer. If Vanessa wanted a war, she'd get one. But it would be fought on my terms, with my rules. Time to show her what leveling up really looked like. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in months. I went to Millbrook Fitness at 6 a.m. The gym was exactly what you'd expect from a place that charged $300 a month for membership. Pristine equipment, towel service, and the kind of clientele that discussed stock options between sets. I signed up for a guest pass and settled in to watch. Colin Drake arrived at exactly 6:05, dressed in designer workout gear that probably cost more than my car payment. He was handsome in that aging quarterback way, silver at the temples, expensive dental work, the kind of tan that came from weekend sailing trips. Vanessa showed up 10 minutes later. I watched from across the gym as she made a beeline for the treadmill next to his elliptical machine. They didn't acknowledge each other directly, but their body language told the whole story. The lingering looks, the synchronized water breaks, the way she laughed just a little too loud at whatever he was saying. Amateur hour. I took photos with my phone, being careful to stay out of sight. Not for legal purposes. Mike was right about keeping everything above board, but for my own peace of mind. Sometimes you need proof that you're not crazy, that what you're seeing is really happening. After they left together, 15 minutes apart, but heading for the same parking garage, I introduced myself to the front desk staff. I'm thinking about joining, I told the perky blonde receptionist. My wife Vanessa Scott has been raving about this place. Oh, Mrs. Scott. She's so sweet. Always here with Mr. Drake for their couples training sessions. Couples training? Yeah, they work out together every Tuesday and Thursday. It's so cute how supportive he is of her fitness goals. I smiled and nodded and signed up for a membership I'd never use. That evening, I was waiting in the kitchen when Vanessa came home. She looked flushed and energetic in a way I hadn't seen in years. "Good workout?" I asked. "What?" "You mentioned you were doing early morning cardio now. How's it going?" "Oh, right. Yeah, it's great. Really gets the adrenaline going." She avoided eye contact, busying herself with opening mail. "How was your day?" "Interesting. I've been thinking about getting back in shape myself. Maybe joining a gym." She froze. "A gym?" "Yeah, maybe Millbrook Fitness. I heard they have great facilities." "I don't think that's your kind of place," she said quickly. "It's very social. Lots of networking, business talk. You'd probably prefer something more low-key." "You don't think I can handle the networking?" "That's not what I meant." But her tone suggested it was exactly what she meant. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Monique Chen from Vanessa's book club. We need to talk." I showed Vanessa the message. "Friend of yours?" She glanced at the phone and her face went pale. "It's probably about the charity auction. I'll call her back later." But I was already typing a response. "Happy to chat. When works for you?" Monique suggested coffee the next afternoon at a cafe downtown. I agreed, curious about what Vanessa's book club friend wanted to discuss that couldn't wait for a phone call. The next day, I arrived at the cafe early and claimed a corner table with a good view of the entrance. Monique Chen turned out to be a petite woman in her 40s with the kind of sharp eyes that suggested she missed very little. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "This is awkward, but I felt like someone should tell you." "Tell me what?" "About Vanessa and Colin Drake." She pulled out her phone. "I wasn't sure if you knew." She showed me a series of Instagram photos from the previous weekend. Vanessa and Colin at some charity event, standing closer than necessary, his hand on the small of her back. In the background, I could see Marcus Webb raising a champagne glass in what looked like a toast. "The whole book club's been talking about it," Monique continued. "Vanessa's been bringing him to events, introducing him as her business partner. Everyone knows what that means." "Why are you telling me this?" She hesitated. "Because Vanessa's been saying things. About you. About your marriage." Her voice dropped. "She's been telling people you're controlling, that you don't support her career, that you're holding her back from her potential." The words hit like a physical blow. "And you believe her?" "I've met you twice, Andrew. Once at Vanessa's birthday party, once at the neighborhood barbecue. Both times you seemed like a nice guy who was proud of his wife." She leaned forward. "But Vanessa's version of events is very different. She's building a narrative." "What kind of narrative?" "The kind that makes her look like the victim when she files for divorce." I sat back in my chair, processing this information. Vanessa wasn't just having an affair. She was conducting a character assassination campaign, poisoning the well, making sure that when the marriage ended, everyone would side with her. "There's something else," Monique said. "Her brother Marcus has been reaching out to people. Mutual friends, neighbors, even some of your old colleagues. He's been asking questions about your finances, your business practices, your relationship with Vanessa." "What kind of questions?" "The kind that suggest he's looking for ammunition." I thanked Monique for her honesty and walked back to my car in a daze. The scope of the conspiracy was bigger than I'd imagined. This wasn't just about an affair or even a divorce. It was about destroying my reputation completely. That night, I called Mike again. "They're not just planning to leave me," I told him. "They're planning to bury me." "Then you better start digging yourself out," he replied. "And kid, stop playing defense. Time to go on offense." He was right. I'd been reacting to their moves instead of making my own. But that was about to change. I opened my laptop and started researching Colin Drake's business practices, Marcus Webb's client list, and Vanessa's recent case history. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd show them what dirty really looked like. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Luke called me on Friday afternoon with an invitation I couldn't refuse. Remember Tom Bradley from high school? He's having a housewarming party tomorrow night. Apparently, your wife and her new boyfriend are going to be there. Tom Bradley, star quarterback, now a successful contractor who'd done well for himself in the post-recession construction boom. We'd been friends once, back when social status was determined by how fast you could run the 40-yard dash instead of how much money you had in your investment portfolio. How do you know Vanessa will be there? Because Marcus Webb is Tom's new business partner. They're developing that luxury housing project over on Oak Street. Luke's voice carried a note of disgust. Apparently, Webb's been telling everyone that Tom needs to upgrade his social circle if he wants to attract the right kind of buyers. The pieces were falling into place. Marcus wasn't just sabotaging my marriage. He was systematically working to isolate me from my old friends while elevating Vanessa's status in our social circle. I'll be there, I said. Andrew, maybe that's not such a good idea. If they're planning something, then I want to see it coming. Saturday night I dressed carefully. Not too formal, I didn't want to look like I was trying too hard, but sharp enough to remind people that I'd done well for myself. I arrived at Tom's new house fashionably late, when the party was already in full swing. The house was impressive. Modern architecture, floor-to-ceiling windows, the kind of open-concept design that screamed success. I found Tom on the back patio, holding court with a group of guys I recognized from the old neighborhood. Andrew! Tom's greeting was warm but surprised. I wasn't sure you'd make it. Wouldn't miss it. The house looks great. Thanks, man. Marcus has been a huge help with the design and marketing, really elevated the whole project. I smiled and nodded, filing away the information. Marcus was spreading his influence wider than I'd realized. I was making small talk with some of the other guests when I saw her. Vanessa, looking stunning in a black cocktail dress I'd never seen before, her arm linked with Colin Drake's as Marcus introduced them to potential investors. She saw me at the same moment I saw her. The color drained from her face, but she recovered quickly, whispering something to Colin before making her way over. Andrew, I didn't know you were coming. Tom's an old friend. Why wouldn't I come? Of course, I just meant... She glanced back at Colin, who was watching us with undisguised hostility. It might be awkward. Awkward for who? Before she could answer, Marcus appeared at her elbow. Andrew, what a surprise. Marcus, nice to see you too. I was just telling some of the investors about Vanessa's work on the zoning applications for the Oak Street project. She's been invaluable. His smile was sharp. It's so important to have competent legal counsel when you're dealing with complex municipal regulations. The implication was clear. Vanessa was competent, valuable, connected. I was just the husband who showed up uninvited to parties. That's great, I said. I'm sure Vanessa's billing hours reflect how valuable her contributions have been. Marcus's smile faltered slightly. Well, family takes care of family. We have an understanding. I'm sure you do. Colin Drake chose that moment to join our little group. Up close, he was even more polished than he'd appeared at the gym. Expensive suit, perfect hair, the kind of confidence that came from never having been told no. You must be Andrew, he said, extending a hand. I've heard so much about you. I shook his hand, noting the firm grip and direct eye contact. All good things, I hope. Of course. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Vanessa speaks of you often. I'm sure she does. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Other guests were starting to notice, conversations quieting as people sensed drama in the air. Tom appeared beside us, clearly uncomfortable. Hey, why don't we grab some drinks? I want to show you guys the wine cellar Marcus helped me design. But I wasn't ready to let this go. Not anymore. Actually, Colin, I'm curious about something. How long have you and Vanessa been working together on the Oak Street project? A few months now. She's been instrumental in navigating the regulatory landscape. And the tennis lessons at Millbrook Country Club? Are those part of the regulatory navigation too? The silence that followed was deafening. Vanessa's face went white. Colin's jaw tightened, and Marcus stepped forward like he was ready for a fight. I think you've had enough to drink, Andrew, Marcus said. I haven't had anything to drink, but thanks for your concern. Maybe we should take this somewhere private, Vanessa said, her lawyer instincts kicking in. Why? We're all friends here, right? I looked around at the gathered crowd, recognizing faces from our old neighborhood, our former social circle. I'm just trying to understand the new business model. Tennis lessons, charity events, book clubs that don't actually read books. It's all very innovative. Andrew, stop, Vanessa hissed. But I was just getting started. You know what I find most interesting? The timing. Marcus shows up, suddenly Vanessa needs to level up her career. Colin starts giving her tennis lessons. Suddenly I'm not ambitious enough. The whole book club starts gossiping about what a terrible husband I am. Suddenly everyone knows our personal business. That's enough, Colin said, stepping closer. Is it? Because I'm just connecting dots here. Public dots. Social media posts, club memberships, business partnerships. I smiled. It's amazing what you can learn when you start paying attention. Marcus grabbed my arm. I think you should leave. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back at his face. Take your hand off me, Marcus. Or what? The crowd had formed a complete circle around us now, everyone watching to see how this would play out. I could see Luke near the back, his expression worried but ready to back me up if things went south. Or I'll start asking questions about how you're billing your legal services, Vanessa. About whether mixing business with pleasure violates any ethical guidelines for lawyers. About whether your new boyfriend's divorce attorney might be interested in knowing about his extracurricular activities. Colin stepped between us. Are you threatening us? I'm stating facts. But if you want to interpret that as a threat, that's your prerogative. The confrontation might have escalated further, but Tom finally stepped in. Okay, that's enough. Everyone needs to cool down. He looked at me apologetically. Andrew, maybe you should head out. Let everyone process this. I looked around the circle of faces, some sympathetic, some shocked, some clearly taking sides. My old friends were choosing between the successful contractor with the influential business partner and the day trader who'd just made a scene at a party. You're right, I said. I should go. But Tom, you might want to be careful about who you trust with your business. Sometimes family doesn't have your best interests at heart. I walked away without looking back, but I could hear the explosion of conversation behind me. By morning, everyone in our social circle would know about the confrontation. They'd have to choose sides. And for the first time in months, I was okay with that, because now the war was out in the open. The fallout from Tom's party was swift and brutal. By Monday morning, I'd received exactly 3 phone calls, 2 from people taking Vanessa's side, 1 from Luke asking if I needed backup. The message was clear. I was being excommunicated from my own social circle. But I'd learned something important at that party. Marcus, Vanessa, and Colin weren't just arrogant, they were sloppy. They'd gotten so confident in their superiority that they'd stopped being careful about covering their tracks. Time to exploit that overconfidence. I started with Colin's divorce records, which were public information. His ex-wife had cited financial irregularities and inappropriate relationships with clients as grounds for their separation. More interesting was the settlement agreement, which included a clause about Colin maintaining professional ethical standards in his future business dealings. A quick search of the State Bar Association's disciplinary records showed that Colin was already on probation for mixing client funds with personal expenses. One more violation could cost him his license. Next, I dug into Marcus's business practices. His development company had received several municipal contracts over the past year, all of them requiring legal review and approval. Guess who'd been providing that legal review? Vanessa. But here's where it got interesting. Vanessa's law firm had strict policies about conflicts of interest. Lawyers weren't supposed to represent family members in business deals, especially when those deals involved municipal contracts that could be influenced by personal relationships. I spent the next week building a comprehensive file. Photos from the gym, social media posts, billing records that I legally obtained through public records requests, witness statements from people like Monique, who were willing to go on record about what they'd observed. Then I made some phone calls. The first was to Colin's ex-wife, Jennifer Drake. "Mrs. Drake, my name is Andrew Scott. I believe you know my wife, Vanessa?" There was a long pause. "Is this about Colin?" "Among other things. I was hoping we could meet for coffee. I think we have some common interests." Jennifer Drake turned out to be a sharp, bitter woman who'd been burned badly by her ex-husband's infidelity and financial manipulation. She was also a forensic accountant with access to resources I couldn't have imagined. "Colin always thought he was smarter than everyone else," she told me over coffee. "That's what got him in trouble with the Bar Association the first time. He was using client escrow accounts like his personal piggy bank." "And you think he's doing it again?" "I know he is. He's been living way above his means since our divorce. The alimony I get from him barely covers his country club membership, but somehow he's driving a new Mercedes and taking expensive vacations." She leaned forward. "If your wife is involved in his business deals, she's either complicit or she's being used. What would it take to prove financial irregularities? Access to his client accounts, billing records, expense reports, the kind of thing that would require a formal investigation." She smiled coldly. "Or a very detailed anonymous tip to the right people." My second call was to the State Bar Association's ethics hotline. "I'd like to report potential conflicts of interest involving municipal contracts and family relationships," I said. The third call was to Big Mike. "I need to document everything perfectly," I told him. "No gray areas, no questionable methods. When this comes out, I want my hands to be completely clean." "What are you planning, kid?" "I'm going to give them exactly what they've been giving me. Public humiliation, social isolation, and professional consequences." I paused. "But I'm going to do it legally and ethically. That's my boy." The plan came together over the following weeks. I documented every public appearance Vanessa made with Colin, every business meeting that mixed personal and professional relationships, every ethical boundary that got crossed in the name of networking. I also started making strategic appearances of my own. Charity events where I could casually mention my concerns about municipal contract bidding processes. Social gatherings where I could express my disappointment about how some people were willing to compromise their professional ethics for personal gain. I never mentioned names. I didn't have to. In a community like ours, everyone knew exactly who I was talking about. The first domino fell when the Bar Association launched a formal investigation into Vanessa's handling of the Oak Street project. The second fell when Colin's probation officer received an anonymous tip about his lifestyle expenses exceeding his reported income. The third domino was the biggest. Tom Bradley called me on a Thursday afternoon. "Andrew, I need to ask you something, and I want a straight answer." "Shoot. Is Marcus Webb screwing me over?" I'd been waiting for this call. Tom was a good guy, but he wasn't sophisticated about business. It had only been a matter of time before he realized that Marcus's partnership was more beneficial to Marcus than to him. "What makes you ask?" "I just found out that the legal work on our project is being billed at twice the normal rate, and it's all going through Vanessa's firm instead of my usual attorney. When I asked Marcus about it, he gave me some bullshit about needing specialized expertise." "Tom, I can't tell you what to do with your business, but if I were you, I'd get an independent legal review of all your contracts with Marcus, especially the ones involving municipal approvals." "Shit. This is really bad, isn't it?" "It could be. But you're not too deep to get out clean if you act fast." Tom acted fast. By the following Monday, he'd hired his own attorney and was demanding a full audit of the Oak Street project. By Wednesday, he'd discovered that Marcus had been inflating costs and billing for services that were never provided. By Friday, Tom had filed a lawsuit against Marcus for fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. The story made the local business journal. Local developer sues financial partner over alleged fraud. The article mentioned that the dispute involved questions about the propriety of using family members to provide legal services for municipal contracts. That weekend, Vanessa came home looking like she'd aged 5 years in 5 days. "We need to talk," she said. "I'm listening." "The Bar Association is investigating me. My firm is conducting an internal review. Colin's been suspended from practice pending a financial audit." She sat down heavily on the couch. "This is your doing, isn't it?" "I haven't done anything illegal or unethical, Vanessa. Can you say the same?" She stared at me for a long moment. "You don't understand. This could destroy my career." "Your career? What about our marriage? What about 8 years of building a life together?" I sat down across from her. "You made your choice, Vanessa. You chose Colin, you chose Marcus, you chose to humiliate me publicly while building a case against me privately. I'm just making sure there are consequences for those choices. It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "How was it supposed to happen? You and Colin ride off into the sunset while I quietly disappear? You get half my assets and a reputation as the victim of an unsupportive husband?" I shook my head. "Sorry, but I'm not that generous." She was crying now, but I felt nothing. The woman I'd married wouldn't have put us in this situation. The woman sitting in front of me was a stranger who'd been wearing my wife's face. "What do you want?" she asked. "I want you to move out. I want a clean divorce with minimal drama, and I want you to leave my friends and my reputation alone." I leaned forward. "Do that, and I'll make sure the Bar Association investigation focuses on procedural violations instead of deliberate fraud. Refuse, and I'll make sure they know about every dinner, every tennis lesson, and every time you mixed business with pleasure." She nodded, defeated. "There's one more thing," I said. "I want you to tell Marcus that if he ever contacts me or anyone in my social circle again, I'll make sure Tom's lawsuit is just the beginning of his legal problems." 2 weeks later, Vanessa moved out. A month after that, our divorce was finalized, with a settlement that heavily favored me, partly because of the adultery clause in our prenup, partly because Vanessa's legal troubles made her eager to avoid any additional scrutiny. Colin Drake lost his law license 6 months later. Marcus Webb's development company went bankrupt fighting Tom's lawsuit and 3 additional fraud claims from other investors who came forward after the story broke. And me? I kept my house, my assets, and my reputation. More importantly, I learned something valuable about myself. I was a lot tougher than anyone had given me credit for, including me. The final piece of the puzzle came a year later, when Jennifer Drake called to thank me. "Colin's been ordered to pay additional restitution to his former clients," she said. "The money from that will more than cover the alimony he's been dodging. I wanted you to know that your information made the difference." I'm glad it worked out. There's something else. I've been talking to some of the other wives who got burned by Colin's charm offensive. We're thinking about starting a support group, comparing notes, sharing resources, making sure guys like him don't get away with it in the future. I smiled. "That sounds like a great idea. Want to help us get organized? You seem to have a talent for this kind of thing." I thought about it. There were probably a lot of people out there who needed someone in their corner when the Marcus Webbs and Colin Drakes of the world decided to level up at their expense. You know what? I'd be honored. 6 months later, I was running a consulting business helping people document and expose financial and personal misconduct by spouses, business partners, and family members. All legal, all ethical, all devastatingly effective. Turns out, being underestimated is a superpower if you know how to use it. and I'd learned to use it very, very well.